Thanks, Emma.
Okay, it is the 18th of June, 2023. This is an NGL intro on the topic of the power of purpose to untwist patriarchal fields. It's the very first one after more than a year of doing them that I've invited someone to do it with me. And I want to say a bit about why I'm choosing to do that, and then let Emma say something at the beginning, and then we will open. I think the simplest way of saying it is that it would be out of integrity not to, because the field of purpose and the examination of the field of purpose is something that Emma and I have been doing for 3.5 years. And while I am still the one to articulate and write about it mostly, not only Emma also writes about this, but I'm the one with the outward facing big presence. And that doesn't mean that it's mine. Part of the evolution of the work is that I no longer recognize it as my work. People still talk to me about my work, your work. They say, we want to learn your work or something like this. But the essential thing is that my work is now our work. It is created from experiments that are done in an interdependent field. And sometimes like in this case, it feels absolutely essential to include the primary co-experimenter with it. So that's what I'm choosing to do this time. And Emma, I'm going to let you say for yourself something, by way of introduction.
Yeah, when you were saying about, can you hear me okay? The speakers are a bit crackly for me sometimes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, saying about the experimenting together, and I was just remembering where the beginning of that experimenting lives for me, and it's in the desert, where I had this experience of like very deeply connecting with flow at the level of rocks, and there's a lot of rocks in the desert, and like just seeing the gradual like disintegration of rocks from mountains down to dust. And it was like looking at a wave, for example, like a wave of time, because you know the rocks only move to dust at the pace of millennia over time. And I was seeing the what's the word? Can't remember the word. Like the impossibility, almost, use that impossibility of actually trying to organize this, or like make it static in some way, in the way that patriarchy does. It's like try and create enough structures, mainly out of rocks, that can like really solidify something and like keep it still and make it stay in the same place so that we know we're safe and nothing's going to change. And it's like, then we're okay. And it's like the more and more years that something can stay in place, the more okay we are. But life isn't actually like that. And, you know, eventually life will disintegrate all of these rocks into dust, and it just continues through. So I just saw life as flow and patriarchy as the attempt to like control and solidify that flow. But I also saw many people had created pictures out of rocks, like collecting the same colored rocks and making like little murals on the floor out of them. And I just saw the possibility of like focusing, how when we focus our attention in a particular way, like in a particular direction, we can kind of set something in time, like start to build something with the like material of life in a certain direction, with like the energy that organically kind of moves from each of us, because we would each, you know, create something completely different from that material, because we each have a different kind of innate creativity. And that when we focus in that way, and we're with the flow, with that flow of life rather than against it, then actually that material, that life energy will like move with us, and then we're in like a play flow with life. And I had this sense like the essence of life is actually play, like focusing the very precious resource of our attention and our creativity in a certain direction, and then just being with the feedback of what comes back as play. And that's how we can like actually move through life in a way that is like in the flow of life, and trust in life's capacity and like nature of playing with us as manifestations of life. Like each of us a manifestation of life. Yeah, so I saw that you reminded me when you were talking of that experience. And I think my relationship with purpose has actually grown from that experience since then. And we were connecting to like the purpose for doing this intro before we got on the call. And yeah, what I really wanted to share with you, or for you to like go away with, was a sense of the power of like the potential for freedom and the power of that within purpose, whether that be like creating like a nuanced and quite complex purpose with like loads of parts and connection with different things, like what we do here, because we're living it every day. We create purposes for pretty much everything, so we're very like, you know, we're in the thinking of it. If you're not thinking about it, it could be quite challenging to create purposes. So it could be anything from that kind of nuanced purpose to like you know, connecting with needs, like what is it that's actually important to me, what need am I intending to in doing this thing, whatever it is. Or if you don't have needs language, it could be like pulling an archetype card or a tarot card, or, you know, angel card, whatever it is, something that you have that can support choice before going into something. And that could be a project that you want to start, or a doctor's appointment, or going to the mechanic. You know, it's like anything really. It's just like bringing that spark of choice so you can orient your attention in a very directed way, and in that way like start to enter that flow, that life flow. So that's why I was wanting to like come bring that with me and engaging with this intro today. I don't know how much I'll engage with the slides. It's been a bit like all over the place in preparing for this. I'll probably just add things as you go. I don't really know, but yeah, this may be the most that I say in this whole intro. We'll see.
So I'm very curious. Some of you have been following me for a very long time. Some of you are new and are likely to not know this, but those who have been following me, do you see how different the flow field that Emma brings into it is from the one that I bring into it? Is it visible how different it is? The weaving of these two fields is an essential element. And if I just bring in the packaged endpoint of it, we're going to be losing something. That's why I wanted Emma to be here.
What are you referring to? Oh, you mean bringing us both here right now to talk? Otherwise, you just bring what comes out at the end. Okay, got it.
Yeah. All right. And now I want to do the usual way that I like to start these things, which is I would like to hear from a few people, especially people who have not been with me before. What is your relationship to the topic? Not like I want to be in an NGL intro with Miki. That I don't need to hear that. It doesn't actually help anyone orient to the topic. Like you read the description and you go, yeah, I'm interested in that. I'd like to hear from a couple of people. What is interesting for you about the topic, especially if you've never been with me before? Okay, even if you have been with me before. What's of interest? Hello, Nalini.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am new. but I'm very interested in the topic. I'm at a point in my life of examining how to recover my feminine side. I feel like I've been in a very male patriarchal world and suffering through that. And understanding, my husband is into Jungian psychology, so he's been helping me with that idea of how we come back to the feminine and reintegrate the feminine. So I was very, very intrigued by the topic, and I am studying NBC, so bringing these two worlds together is very interesting to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? What is calling to you in this topic? You came here. Hopefully you're interested in the topic. Allison.
Hello, my name is Allison Matamoros, and when I read the topic, I became interested because, first, what stood out was the part about patriarchy, and I'm identify as a feminist, and I really believe in feminist ideals, and a big part of feminism for me is about creating a culture of nurturance and nonviolence and peace, and it's about creativity. And then I saw the part about purpose, and I didn't really understand exactly how they connect, and I'm still wondering, but I know that in patriarchal world, in our purpose, a lot of it is around production and reproduction, and there's so much more to a being than just producing, and for females to like reproduce. And having taken a sabbatical year off from being a public school teacher, I've been exploring that question of like what purpose is. So that's why this topic.
Welcome. Welcome. I hope you find what you're wanting, because the questions you're raising are of interest to me. Thank you. Cindy, and then we'll start.
Okay. I just wanted to say to Allison, I'm a recovering school teacher of 33 years when I quit. I was quite young. So I'm glad you're here. I wish I'd have found this earlier, but it's okay. So I have been with Miki off and on for a long time, and I last year learned the power of vision, and I made another incredible change in my life according to vision. And at this point, I'm finding my people, and one of them is online and has never done any of Miki's and Emma and the team's work about vision, and we're about ready to come together, hopefully. And so I wanted to make sure we were deeply grounded in visioning and how that impacts our decisions and how strong we'll be able to move forward in a patriarchal world following that vision. And I feel like this last year has been deeply rooted in vision and amazing, challenging, but amazing.
Awesome. All right, great. So I am now going to start. And for those who don't know, the way that I do things is I have a slideshow to form an arc of movement through the content. And I go back and forth between the slides and having conversation. The conversation is an integral part of it. I never like lecturing. And so I'm hoping that as you listen to what I say and what Emma adds when she does, I hope that you will think of it, make it your own, engage with it, ask questions, make comments when I come back. Yes, Dylan.
Thank you. There is a question in the chat that says, I don't know what is meant by patriarchal fields. or even what is meant by fields. And I didn't know if you're going to address that in your slides or if you might want to mention it a little bit right now. And
I think I'm going to keep it in mind as we get into it. And I would like to start, and thank you for saying this, because I don't look at the chat. It is impossible for me to both teach and look at the chat. I don't know how anyone does it, but I can't. So we'll see how well I can weave it into what I say. All right. So now I'm starting. Gonna get out and see if it is not working the way that I wanted to. It doesn't show you the whole slide, right?
No.
This is one of those things that I would never. Oh,
Need to move the green box, I think.
there, it's getting better now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay.
This, I didn't know
That's
that
fine.
this could move.
Mhm.
I think now it's fine.
Yep.
Great. Okay. So the way I like to structure these, and I am conscious that patriarchal fields is in the title, and I am hoping it will be clear as we go. But the way I like to start is I like to start from vision. In any one of these intros, there's a vision, then there's current reality, and then there's how do we bridge the two? And that's where the power of purpose comes in. And it's in the vision and current reality that I'm hoping that these two questions will become clear. So the vision of what life could be. I think it's a little, yeah. The vision of what life could be is fully interdependent living, which is something that modern people, especially those living in the global north or in the westernized classes and groups of the global south, it's hard to grasp what fully interdependent living means when we have been so individualized and torn from each other and from land. Still, I want to paint the vision of what that means. Choice happens within togetherness, which again is something that is hard for people to grasp. We'll get more into it in the next slide, what we have that isn't this. Resources flow to needs, which the only place where it reliably continues to exist, Alison was talking about reproduction. It's in relation to little ones, which is why Genevieve Vaughn is talking about the maternal roots of the gift economy, because all of us are here as having unilaterally received from a mother or someone else who was able to orient to our needs without expecting to receive anything back. The relationship of nurturing a baby and a small child is not a relationship of exchange. It's a relationship of a lot of unilateral giving. And this is what we evolved for, that resources flow to needs. That is fully interdependent living. We see what happens. Decisions are made based on clarity of what are all the needs, what are the available resources, what are the existing and potential impacts in the field, how do we move the resources to the needs with the least amount of unwanted impact. And lastly, we live within the means of the planet, which entails relationship with non-human life that is very different from the exploitative one that we have now. That's the vision of what life could be. And now I'm going to go to the second slide and then come back to a conversation. This second slide describes patriarchy, patriarchal living, which is based on scarcity, separation, and powerlessness. And there's a huge amount to say about it. And I'm not going to do that today because I want to focus on this specific topic. Suffice it to say that for me, patriarchy isn't about men and isn't actually about the domination of women. Although it leads to that, patriarchy is how we relate to life. It's a relationship to life that comes from loss of trust, that leads to control. Within scarcity, separation, and powerlessness, which are the core features of patriarchy, we no longer can do choice within togetherness because we are in separation. So we are in this either or. Either we are in some togetherness with other people and give up choice, or we go elsewhere to have choice outside of togetherness. Needs are attended to through unequal exchange, not through flow of resources. It's like I give you and you give back, and their exchanges are unequal because of power differences. Decisions are made based on concepts of what should happen, what is wrong, what is fair, who deserves what. That's how we make decisions. Needs go out of the way. They lose their power. And as a result of all of this, we are consuming well beyond what the earth can sustain and are destroying the basis of life on which we depend. We are consuming more resources than ever before with far less capacity to live well and enjoy ourselves. So there's some paradox here that has to do with the separation. So these are these two slides that I start with, and Emma, I'm wondering if there's anything you want to say before I go back to the conversation that relates to the slide. Otherwise, I can go back and you can say it later.
I don't think so. It will be going more into like, yeah, places where you didn't want to go in this session. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So when I'm trying to describe what is a field, because I know that question is still there, it's something that you can't see. You can only experience it. I'm wondering who asked that question, and maybe we can be in dialogue. Hello, and how do you pronounce your name? Would you open your mic and tell me how you pronounce your name?
I'm Eli.
Eli. Hi, Eli. Thank you for asking the question. So I'm curious if it's ever happened to you that you got into some house somewhere. You go into the house and you feel like a relaxation. It's very pleasant to be there. And you can't point. Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know about a house in particular, but certainly I've walked into spaces and felt relaxation, or more commonly in interaction with specific people.
I'm not talking about people, about specific people. Like I'm talking about a space or a group or something. And then there's another place where you open the door, you walk in and it's like, ugh, there's something that doesn't feel good. You had that?
Yeah.
That is the closest that I can come experientially to explain it. It's like there's an energetic field in the place that you enjoy or don't enjoy. The energetic field of living within patriarchy is one of scarcity, separation, and powerlessness. And we all live within that, and most of us don't know and can't even imagine something else. But that's what I mean by a patriarchal field. Those qualities concentrated. It's based on control, separation, right, wrong, what should happen, either or thinking, who deserves what, blaming and shaming, all of these things. I'm sure you're familiar with those things because they're everywhere. That is what I'm referencing. And it's made up of things that we can't necessarily pinpoint as specific observations, though they manifest in specific observations, but it's larger than this or that thing having happened. Does that help?
So there's a bunch of ideas or assumptions, like scarcity. Scarcity, I would say, is like an assumption or like a background assumption about a situation or about the world.
Absolutely.
And when this is like a context that is being communicated energetically.
Exactly.
Does
Through everything, through how we are socialized, through what we see in the movies, through how the media function, through how our institutions functions. There's like a basic mistrust. Like if you go to some bureaucracy, they're going to be suspicious of you for trying to get something out of them that isn't rightly yours. All of these things, it's like a gestalt of something. Is this enough for the moment?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Other questions or comments about these two slides that I've shown? And Emma, I'm not going to constantly ask you if you want to say
No,
something.
it's fine. I'll say something if something comes up.
Yeah, just open the mic whenever you
Yeah.
have something. Yeah, Folkmar.
When I look at the slides, I see, okay, there's a vision, there's a beautiful vision. I think many people had visions, not like that, definitely. And how to get there was partly quite cruel.
Yeah.
So, and you're talking about purpose, and this is the side where I want to read. Yeah. Okay, I'm curious how that balance, how to balance that out, because we don't talk about
now.
Right.
Right now, I just want to look at the gap to get the felt sense that there's a gap between where we want to be and where we are.
Yeah.
That's all that it is. And I'm so with you that so many times it has happened that people got excited about a vision, and in trying to walk towards that vision, they re-implemented patriarchal structures and recreated the very thing that they were trying to change. This is one part of why I'm more and more convinced that we need to stay small for a long while within NGL to really create a new field that can function in alignment with the vision before we try to do something big in the world. Because if we try to do something big in the world, as we are now, even if we succeeded, we would also recreate what is happening. You know, I supported Extinction Rebellion for a couple of years. I supported them because I read their founding documents, and I was super inspired that a movement was basing itself on those principles. I could see myself in those principles. I had never seen anything like it. And then they started moving. And when they started moving, it was all very fast and very big, and lots of people joined. And there wasn't an integration of what those things mean. So Extinction Rebellion became de facto a movement like other movements. And I no longer was in integrity to support, because the funneling of resources to do what some of us thought it would take to align them, to align their means with their ends, the resources were not there. So it was no longer a true project of nonviolence for me to be part of.
Yeah, I guess one part is that they're felt under pressure to go ahead, to proceed. That's one big.
Yeah. All right.
There's another piece there which is about humility. And I remember there was something you sent to us here the other day about, I think it was about regenerative culture or something, but it was saying how like the problems that we're dealing with today are the come from the actions of, obviously they come from the actions of people before us who were trying to care for whatever needs they were trying to care for in whatever ways they were. So what makes us think that what we're trying to do now is not going to create problems for those in the future? So there's something really about having a lot of humility around what we're doing, and not thinking that it's like the right thing, or that it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
different, what makes us think that it's different. Like, it's really important to carry that humility with everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Every step we take. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going back. And now I want to talk about liberation. And the simplest way of talking about liberation for me is about restoring our capacity to function within vision. It's so simple and so elusive, both individually and collectively. And we are basing our understanding of liberation on a quote from a woman who died long before her work was fully seeded into the world. So not that many people know of her. Erica Sherover Marcuse. Anyone who's heard of Herbert Marcuse, which is more people, she was his wife. And she defines liberation as both the undoing of the effects and the elimination of the causes of social oppression. Very simple definition. And the way I see that we can kind of like divide it is undoing the effects is what we do as individuals to restore our capacity without changing conditions around it, or how we support other individuals. It's not just about ourselves. Restoring collective capacity, it needs to also tend to eliminating the causes. And that's where the systemic is particularly significant. And then when we bring the two together, what we are trying to do is to restore flow, togetherness, and choice. Usually we do it in the other direction, but that's a complexity that I don't want to get into right now. Ultimately, that is what we want to restore, the principles of life, which are flow, togetherness, and choice. I want to do one more slide before coming back to talk with people again, which is liberation is one thing when there is a welcoming of it. You know, I am actually in some ways, in some very narrow ways, I have a really, really easy life because most of the time I talk with people who want what I have to offer by way of liberation. Not all the time, but most of the time. But many of the people who are in the field live in contexts where either within themselves or elsewhere, liberation is not welcome. And that's when we talk about untwisting. If we think about the patriarchal field as creating distortions and twisting us, in order to create liberation, we need to untwist what has happened. And it's very intense because most people, you know, like, I'm sure you've heard the language of smashing the patriarchy. In my ears, smashing the patriarchy is a patriarchal frame. And so what I came to instead is the idea of surrounding the patriarchal field with love. Because love and all the soft qualities melt the patriarchal field, and then we can do more things. What makes it challenging is that the patterns of scarcity, separation, and powerlessness are not only in some abstract systems. Those abstract systems would not survive if they weren't also lodged within us and within everyone around us. So there's patterns, there's patterns of scarcity, separation, and powerlessness that are in all of us. And those patterns are what require the untwisting. And it's in order to do the untwisting, to surround the patriarchal field with love, we need to lean on our own capacity to weave togetherness, either within ourselves, to weave togetherness between whatever within us wants liberation and whatever within us is attached in some way to something as it exists out of fear, out of trauma, out of lack of imagination or whatever reason. This is extremely difficult work. It requires a tremendous amount of capacity because it requires bringing in sufficient love and sufficient capacity to weave togetherness that even if the other person or the other people in the context are not gung-ho about liberation, we could still move somewhere together. Some people are doing it now, and the results are breathtaking. So that's what I want to go back into conversation about.
I wanted to add something, Miki, when you said that that love melts the patriarchal field and then we can do more. I wanted to shift it slightly to saying that love like subverts the patriarchal field and that aligns means with ends. So when we're when our actions and our ways of being towards any of those expressions of scarcity, separation, powerlessness, however it shows up, when our expressions towards those things are coming from how we would want the world to be rather than another kind of against energy in relation to that, then we're more likely to connect in with the needs or the life energy that's behind those actions, and that's what like melts it, because then it's seen and it's held, and then it's more likely to like almost like recruit that person, more likely to recruit that person into the direction that we want to go in, rather than create more of the same. So that's how it's aligning what we're doing with the outcome that we want, which is more of us to be within that orientation of love towards life rather than againstness with life.
Thank you. Yeah. Pam, you had your hand up and then you took it down.
I put some things in the chat too. There's so much, and I'm just on the edge of being able to grasp. Like what Emma just said, I was thinking, okay, you said from melt to subvert, and then I'm thinking transform, and I'm getting it. You're like not against it, but wanting to take. There's a in Hasidic Jewish tradition, there's the idea that there's a spark of divine light in everything, no matter how bad, no matter how harmful, and that it can be, and that rather than destroying things, you want to transform them so that the spark can be released. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I wonder if we could go to the question that I put in the chat, because I don't remember, I can't formulate.
Ask it.
Okay. Okay. Examples for the 3 steps of liberation might be helpful. And maybe connecting them with the slide that came after that.
The 3 steps of liberation.
Yeah, like the what? Yeah, yes.
These are not steps. Those are not steps. Those are just what it takes.
Okay.
What it means, but it's not steps.
So I wonder if you could just ground each of those 3 ideas in some sort of example and maybe connect them to the next untwisting slide.
Sure. So for example, one of the things that we talk about a lot here is male training and female training. One of the effects of patriarchy is that the overwhelming majority of women succumb to female training. Not every single woman. I didn't, but most of us do. And even I, in some small ways, I did. And it took huge amounts of strength and loneliness to actually not succumb to it. Female training is what happens to you. The effect of it is certain patterns and ways of behaving that are not entirely predictable, but they are phenomena, they are encrusted pathways that you can see many women take. Now, you might be like super excited about like, oh my God, I can liberate myself from female training, bring it on. And then we work with it and we uncover where's the pattern, what form does it take? Does it take the form of making yourself into an object? Does it take the form of orienting to others' needs at the expense of your needs? They are like a series of patterns that we can find. And we find the pattern. Then we create a little vision for you, a little purpose for you, a set of agreements. Maybe it's so traumatized that you need to get some trauma healing, but you have a package and then you go that package and you step towards liberation. That's one way. That maybe you're saying, what are you talking about? Female training? I don't have any female training. That's how I like to dress. That's how I like to behave. But then 2 days later, without talking about this, you talk about what an asshole this guy is who did this or that to you. And you're not connecting the two. So then that, if I want to support your liberation, I need to bring something to it from me, because it isn't in you. The desire for liberation isn't in you. Like if you're not close to me, I would say, okay, fine, that's how you are, that's okay. But if you're close to me and we live together, or we're close friends, it will have impacts on me that you are staying within the female training. Is that so far helping?
Well, I'm trying to connect it with what you have on the slide, and I'm not seeing the connection.
Undoing the effects is restoring for you the capacity to be.
Restoring individual capacity means undoing like the female training.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to help. When you talk about restoring individual capacity, that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about, well, it doesn't matter what I was thinking about.
It actually could be helpful.
Okay.
And while you're thinking, I'm going to turn on the light because I think the room is getting darker. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, restoring individual capacity. So I get undoing the effects. I get what you mean by undoing the effects. I get like trying to heal from the different stories and unconscious contracts and beliefs, core beliefs that drive me without my realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's undoing the effects. I'm actually not sure what you mean by restoring the individual capacity.
When you undo the effects, your natural capacity for choice will manifest.
For choice, freedom, of course. Thank you. Okay.
And then once you have that, you can start moving towards togetherness. And when you are together with others, you can start moving towards flow. That's the super oversimplified version.
Let's just pause there. When you have choice, when you can move toward togetherness. And when you have togetherness, you can move together towards flow.
That's oversimplified because you can restore flow in pockets before restoring choice, but I don't want to get into that. But fundamentally, yes, that's the journey.
And I know you always are saying, don't wait to be healed before you engage in liberation for everybody or wherever you're called to. So that's maybe more towards purpose. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. I'm always grateful to Pam for asking questions because I'm telling myself that what she asks, other people also kind of go, I'm not sure. And then she asks and I answer her. And I think everybody else gets something out of it.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the reassurance because I do talk a lot. I do feel comfortable talking. I want to engage. And man, I have those questions. I want to know. I want to understand so badly. So I'm really glad that my desire, my drive to understand is supportive to others as well.
Great. Anything else on these slides? Yes, Allison.
Oh yeah, I wanted to thank Pam because I hadn't really noticed the part of the slide that said restoring capacity. I was focused more on the effects and then the causes. And I think that might be because of like my own Buddhist training or like way of thinking, of just we talk a lot about like dependent origination and sort of what are, and like the causes of suffering. But the part about restoring capacity now is really important because it's connected to the vision, and that when separation or scarcity like aren't in the way, what it uncovers is our natural ability to be generous and to see the world through this like lens of abundance. So thanks, Pam, for orienting me towards that.
That's pretty cool because I look at our species now and I think of ourselves as a super low capacity species because we've all been traumatized. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to now continue with the next slide. So we talked about untwisting, and now it's like, what are we untwisting from? And this is what we call the patriarchal trance, in which we are conditioned away from life and we just accept it and flow within it. So patriarchal socialization, because it goes against life, needs to subdue people. A baby isn't born willing to obey. A baby isn't born thinking there's anything wrong with them. But those two things are essential to create the low capacity that we are in. So we end up living in survival conditions. That's the low capacity. Because we want belonging, most of us internalize patriarchal patterns so that we can belong with less shaming and less punishment. And the net result is there are deep grooves that exist that it's very easy to follow. And one of the key elements is that we forget that something else is possible. We don't have access to vision. We don't even know what is possible other than what there is. That's part one of the patriarchal trance, is what is within us, the conditioning. And part two is what is outside of us. When we start the journey of liberation, we get pushback. And the pushback, or even before the pushback, it's there. The pushback can come from family and friends. I imagine that many of you who have been on any journey of changing yourselves to free up anything, to heal anything, you go back to your family of origin, and it's the hardest to apply those changes there. And part of it is because there will be pushback to bring us back into the groove that we emerged from. There's messages that come to us from the media all the time that reinforce lack of trust in humans and in our capacity. Our institutions are based on mistrust. So it's like it continues. And we live in exchange and accumulation economies, which continually reinforce scarcity. And ultimately, there's the threat of violence that the state is based on. So all of that is outside of us and reinforces what is in us. It installed it in the first place and it reinforces it. That's the soup within which we live. The next slide is going to be about purposes liberation. So this is the last of creating the context. And I still want to come back and see before we go to purpose. Comments, questions? Do you recognize what is being talked about? Dylan and then Asla?
So in the chat, there was a question about whether or not I could assume some female training if I was at choice, and not me personally, just people in general. And I thought, well, if I am at choice, then I can choose what I wish. That's one thing I thought. And then I was wondering, since I am swimming in the soup or in this trance and awakening myself and trying to do things differently and relate differently to people, how do I don't know, how do I know if I'm truly at choice or am I just doing the best I can? Is there some kind of a response?
First of all, the contrast is not between being a choice and doing the best I can. I'm always doing the best I can.
Yes.
That is an invariable. I'm always doing the best I can. If I could do better, I would.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for the reminder.
The question is, am I a choice or am I driven by a pattern that I am unconscious of?
I'm sure that would reveal itself over time if I kept doing the same thing. Okay.
And the reality is that we don't actually have a way of knowing. So the first thing I want to bring to the investigation is what Emma spoke about earlier, humility.
Okay.
Not to assume that I know that I'm in choice or not in choice. And one way that I can assess if I'm in choice or not is, am I able to do something other than what I'm about to do?
It's a good question to ask.
Because, for example,
A helpful question.
Yes, for example, I have a really, really, really strong commitment to authenticity my entire life. To the point where if I couldn't be authentic, I felt dead. And it's not possible for me, or at least it wasn't possible for me to say something that was inauthentic. It was possible for me to say nothing, but not to say something that was inauthentic. And one day I realized I'm not in choice about this. I'm not actually in choice, even though it's aligned with my value. I'm not in choice if I'm always have to, must, or else. And over the last few years, I developed much more resilience where it's still, I would never say something that isn't true or authentic, but where I can not say something without having a sense of being dead or disconnected. I can just make a relaxed choice. This thing doesn't make sense to say now or to this person or in this context or within this purpose. And I cannot say it and maintain softness and relaxed and not get into this tension of like, oh my God, I'm inauthentic. What am I going to do? That's more choice. Even in an area where I still stand behind the value and the way that I'm doing it, I was not in full choice.
Thank you for sharing that, because I saw you coaching someone and they misunderstood what you said, and I watched you let them have their moment of revelation without correcting them. And I don't know that that is a moment of choice where, you know, maybe you just but it felt like a moment of choice to me to not say, that's not what I said, that's not what I meant. You didn't do that. And it was really lovely because the person went away understanding what they understood more than they had. And it was I think it's an example for me about how to be at choice rather than saying no, you know. So anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate the idea of asking myself, can I do something different? Can I? Would I? And if not, why not? So some good questions to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And something else is asking myself the why question.
Yeah.
What is actually leading me to make the choice that I'm making? Can I recognize an actual need, an actual choice, or no, I just like it, or this is how it is, or whatever, then it's not real choice. So I can discover, if I'm really curious about my own choice, I can discover it over time.
Thank you.
Asla?
Hello. I was wondering about, and I'm thinking and chewing on the connection between, or like maybe the dance between individual and collective, or yeah, I think you said collective liberation and action, and maybe like how humility plays with that. Because I think there could be a bias or like kind of feeling stuck. If I'm like, maybe maybe I or the system isn't ripe enough for action, or thoughts like that.
It all makes sense to me what you're saying, and I don't actually know what is the question that I would answer. Do you have a question, or do you want to just?
Yeah, like maybe, yeah, how to balance individual versus like collective, because it kind of feels different where the individual is maybe like trauma healing, collective is like sitting at an action, yeah.
I think it's a question of how big the collective is that I'm talking about. If it's a collective that is a group where we know each other, then there is synergy between individual liberation and collective liberation. If you're talking about systemic, like at the largest level of systems, I don't believe any of us at the moment know how to get there. I think there are many movements that are trying to do things, and overwhelmingly those movements are against, not with and not in the direction of vision. So I don't have an answer. I am working at the level at which I have some sense of confidence that we can work on collective liberation within some sense of a coherent field.
Got it. Okay, great. That's great for now, and I'll kind of sit with that. Thank you.
Great. There's one other thing, which is
something as well.
Okay, if you are an activist, then the question is, how do I do my activism in a way where the method of the activism is aligned with the vision, so that I don't end up recreating the patriarchal patterns that I'm trying to shift. And we have, by the way, monthly calls in which activists come and we explore activism that is nonviolent and oriented towards liberation. And it's a really remarkable space. If you are an activist, I would invite you to search for it and come, unless somebody has the link and can put it in the chat. Yeah, Emma.
Something that I realized the other day, and I think we had already realized it somewhere else, and I don't know where it came from, but was a difference between this concept of like critical mass, something which kind of, I realized it kind of infers that it's a load of individuals who are becoming liberated, and then when there's enough people who are liberated to a certain level as individuals, then there'll be some shift. And what I realized is it's not about individuals staying in their individual lives that will create some shift when we don't know what will, but it's individuals shifting into that interdependent living that we saw in the vision. Like when there's enough mass of people who are actually shifting into that way of being, that there's more, I think there's more likely to be some shift in that pathway than individuals coming to enough individuals coming together. It needs to actually shift how we're living together at the material level for there to actually be some change. And we were calling this, and this is where I don't know where that came from, but it's like critical yeast theory rather than critical mass, because it's like, what is that like when when you put yeast in bread or something and then it all spreads through it and then rises, makes it bigger together. I don't know where that came
Ferment.
from. The image. Right. Yeah.
Ferment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I would say that individual liberation stops at a very low level of liberation if people continue to live individual lives within capitalist society. That is like a block to how far you can go towards liberation if you maintain an individual life. And by individual life, I include nuclear families. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to drop one other thing in here, which I think the pathway to that, which we're discovering, is actually in how we deal with waste and how we deal with feedback, because what our systems cut us off from is feedback loops about like what actually happens with all of this stuff that we produce, and it actually, you know, as if it goes out into nowhere, but it doesn't. It goes out into somewhere that then creates a lot of pollution and waste. And it's the same with like stuff that we absorb, or that, you know, it doesn't have anywhere to go relationally. It's like pollution and waste in the relational field as well. So it's like, how do we actually come together to orient differently to all of that, like waste what's currently waste product and stuff that we don't want to go near, conflict and waste. And I realized that it's actually like orienting to that stuff which will change how we live together, because when we orient to waste, it actually changes the relationships in a place or between people. Whereas if we orient to like the energy that's coming in, like to where we get our power from, is it wind or water or whatever it is, that doesn't actually change how we're functioning together at the you know, daily material way in which we live. So yeah, just that.
Thank you. I'm just wanting to say that I'm really celebrating having two people that have never been in the field. Aslan, I don't think you have been in the field before, and definitely not Alison. Coming with questions that are already within a kind of baseline understanding of what we're trying to do. It's so profoundly affirming that something is there. I'm really, really inspired by seeing both of you. Thank you. I'm loving the conversation, and I'm a little worried about not being able to get through the full arc if we stay with all the questions. So I am wondering, I want to leave for the moment questions that are not about clarity of understanding, questions that are more like deeper exploration. I want to leave them for later once we're done with the arc. Melissa?
Oh, thanks. That last slide, the part 2, I'm wondering if you have an example. It helps me to ground my understanding to have an example.
An example of, let's go there. I was already on the next slide. An example,
yes.
For example, media. The movies that we
sorry, an example of this, is it the flow? Yeah, the flow of like from family and friends to media institutions to so on, like starting from the beginning, going throughout.
No, I don't think I can do that. And I don't think that, I think I wasn't thinking it thoroughly enough. It's not the arrows. I asked Sabrina to add the arrows, and now I'm looking at it. I would like her to take the arrows off, because I think I was mixed up with some other situation in which on the path of liberation, we get pushback more and more from more systemic forces the more we go on the path of liberation. So I just literally got confused. Forget about the arrows.
Okay, I see. So on one subject matter, we may only get that pushback from some of these elements, not necessarily.
Something like that. Yeah.
Even no matter how far we go. Huh?
All of them reinforce the current existence through more or less friendly terms.
Oh, through friendly terms. Oh.
More or less friendly. There's nothing friendly about the violence of the state.
No, not at all. Right. So it could be friendly or unfriendly on anything on that spectrum, but basically it reinforces. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now comes the part of how purpose supports liberation. This is before we get into untwisting. Just how purpose supports liberation. So first of all, what is purpose? And the simplest way of understanding purpose is when I look at the gap that we looked at the beginning between the vision and the now, what is mine to do to close the gap? And we're not always going to look at the largest vision of everything and at the global state of everything. I can have a vision of myself in some piece of liberation and look at that vision and look at where I am now in terms of capacity. And then the purpose would be, what is mine to do to close this gap? It's just, what is mine to do to close the gap that I am facing? Then once we have a purpose, we can think of purpose as a kind of an algorithm for prioritizing needs and options. Because most of the time there's more than one pathway to proceed. I have multiple needs, many situations, multiple needs. How do I know how to prioritize them? In what proportion to attend to one need and in what proportion to attend to another need? Purpose helps me determine. So the same group of people can come together for the purpose of organizing an event, or they can come together for the purpose of mutual support, and how they will relate with each other if they're conscious of the purpose will be different. They will prioritize connection in a different way. Usually, a purpose is best served by being a short statement that can remind me of what it is. Purpose can't be aspirational. It needs to be true to what already is. Some people say that my purpose is what I can't not do. And then when I have purpose, it supports liberation, because purpose, as we understand it, not the production and all of that, moves us from control or going alone, which is how we function within the patriarchal context, to being a co-shaper, an active shaper of what is happening without controlling anything. That capacity to shape, bring who I am and what I am, to shape what is and release, because I'm co-shaping, I'm not the only one shaping. That is already a liberated capacity. And ultimately, because purpose orients to vision, it anchors love and trust. So that's what we see for why purpose is liberation. And I'm going to go back after this one because it's actually quite a lot, and I want to see if there are more questions. Yeah, Volkmar.
What you just said about because purpose is anchored in vision, it
isn't anchored in vision. It's oriented to
orienting towards, sorry, it is enacting love and trust. I'm not sure about that. Where are the values then? Because the purpose is in itself, I don't know, how can the purpose carry the values?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Emma, do you understand? Do you have a way of responding?
I feel like I almost have something. There's something about like, so I mean, this is a bit of a vision mobilization thing, so not everyone might know what we're talking about. But if the values are taking qualities from the vision and like pulling them down into what we then take on as values and give more articulation, the purpose is orienting outwards. So it has this like untwisting action. So the purpose is going, bridging the gap, like from what is towards the vision. The values are taking from the vision and bridging towards where we are. So the purpose is it moves within, it's like it moves within that channel of what Miki's written here as love and trust. There may be other things that it's moving within the channel of as well, like more of the like soft qualities, and it's like it needs to contain that energy of the vision in its movement outwards in order to align means with ends, so that we're actually moving towards that vision through what we're doing. Does that help?
Yeah, what I understand is that the values, they do that. They help us align with the vision in the area of how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And purpose is telling us what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So purpose as such is not helping us to align ourselves how we're doing it.
I mean, the whole thing mixes in with itself. They're not like, but
yes,
yeah, the values are, yes, they're telling us how we're doing something. And
so for an example might be helpful. How can I want to, for instance, I want to, my purpose is to support individuals and myself in liberation. That might be my purpose. That in itself doesn't help me to be aligned with my values. I need to also consider my values.
You need values also.
That's the
purpose
thing.
Already has within it, just the way you named it, already has within it liberation.
Yes.
And that aligns it with the vision. It is moving towards liberation and therefore towards vision.
Yes, it's just we don't talk about values here. We only talk about purpose.
We're just focusing on purpose
today,
here.
Today, we're not always not focusing on values.
Yeah, okay. I'm just wondering how we can hold, because sometimes I seem to drop the values. I seem to, because I'm caught in my patterns, and I overlook, okay, that's not in alignment with my values actually.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes. So how can I, so that's why I want to hold both at the same time, and when I'm only focusing on purpose.
Today we are only focusing on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya?
Hi, everyone. I have a question about this sentence that it's not aspirational, that it's more like stating something that I am already doing. Is that how it's meant? That it's not like I want to or I will?
I will is something I try not to say because I don't know ever what I will do.
Mm. So that's what you mean by not aspirational. It's like stating something that I'm doing now.
It can be something that I want to be doing, and it still needs to be something that is true and is within capacity.
Mm-hmm.
If it's aspirational, I'm less likely to do it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Jennifer?
Yes, thanks. Emma, could you repeat that thing you said that had the movements? Because I caught for the first time as that it was a twisting, but it went so fast. It was a new thing for me, that movement. It sounded really cool. So could you go over that in detail of what's going up towards what and what's coming down and how an actual untwisting? Thanks.
So there's the vision, which is where we're wanting to head towards, and then there's where we are, like our current capacity. And on the values side, no, wait, I'll go back a step. So within the vision, there is like, that's a full world. Like if that was in existence, we'd be living in it just as we're living in it right now. And so that world has like a field to it, just as we talked at the start. And that field has certain qualities, just as the current field that we live in has like blame, shame, whatever, all that stuff that we know. The vision has different qualities within it that make it as it is. So to mobilize towards that, we want to access those qualities within that vision, which is also, those qualities are also within the spark that Pam talked about earlier. So we assume that those qualities do actually live within us, like we're born with it. We need to be socialized out of it in order to do something else. So it's there, it's not something that we're making up. It actually lives within us biologically. So it's like we touch into that vision, like what is that? And imagine like what are the qualities that make that space possible if that were to be real. Just like if we go into a novel or something, we're really in it. It's like we can feel it. So what are the qualities that exist within that? And then with the values, we want to like feel into those qualities and then like pull them out. Like what are the qualities that make them possible, make that possible? I'm going to take those qualities and bring them down, like bring them now to the now. So I'm pulling it towards me. And I take those qualities into me, into my life, and see how I can integrate them into my current ways of being and see how that shifts how I am now. And this is like the internal liberation piece, bringing those values in. And the purpose is like how I just explained it to Folkmar, is like, it's a track that it's going out. So how do I take those qualities which are already within me in all the things that I want to give organically, this is what I can't not do. It's like there's something about me and you that you can't not do, that it's like you want to give this way of being to the world, to life, like contribute that to life. So this is like taking those qualities from within and pushing them out into the world. So it's realizing the vision both internally by pulling it in and by articulating purpose and sending it out into life. So that's that like untwisting action. Does that help? That was a lot more detail than I said earlier.
It helped a lot. It's really great. I see that. And it can get it's not just like a piston back and forth. There is like because it builds anyway, like the spiral theory of knowledge sort of thing, that it builds on each other with more and more qualities, more and more insight, more and more connection.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I hadn't seen that before. Thank you.
Nice. You're welcome.
Eli?
I have a logistical question. Is there a place where I can download the slides so that I can look
You'll
at
receive them later. I'm saying this in the future. Things are designed for you to receive it later. Things were designed for there to be a tech person today. So I don't know that you will receive them, but that is the intention. That's part of the flow.
Cool. It would be helpful, I think, to be able to see the slides while we're in the discussion segments, for me at least.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to do that.
The thing is, when we keep the slides on, you see only a few people.
Yeah.
So that's, But anytime anybody can ask to please show the slide again.
Okay.
And then I'm happy to. All right, next slide. So the first thing we untwist is ourselves. It is my belief, and there may be a difference between the way that we see it here and the way that Folkmar sees it, and that's fine, and we're not going to try to work it out here. It is our experience that when we have a really clear purpose that really holds well and is within capacity, it has a stronger pull to it than values. And the reason is that it has a direction. It's going somewhere. It pulls us towards vision and love. The values pull us towards, aligning ourselves within, but not enough to jump out of the trance. Purpose awakens us from the trance, because within the trance, we either continue what we have internalized, we rebel against it, or we disconnect and give up. When we have a clear purpose, it pulls us to actually align and wake up from the patterns and what we're doing. Having a clear purpose that really is grounded supports us in taking ourselves seriously. I was once doing a purpose exercise in a company, and first we had a purpose for the company, and then we divided into teams, and each team created a purpose for itself. And I went from team to team to support them in completing their purpose statement. And at one point I went to the admin team. Everybody knows admin teams is not what everybody's dream of what to do. And they were working on this, and I don't remember it. I have it written somewhere, and I wish I had thought of bringing it, but I didn't. But it's something like, we support everyone else with clear, I can't remember. It was really beautiful, describing what they do. The moment the last word of it fell into place, in that moment, somebody spontaneously said, "Now I know why I am important." It was a very moving moment, both for her, for me, and for the whole team. And purpose connects us with others who are also on this journey, and we come together in a kind of like a bubbling purpose field that is pulling us collectively towards somewhere. This is one of the things that are beginning to happen to at least some of us within NGL, is that our purposes are intertwined, and it becomes a thicker, more robust purpose field. And then there's purpose, and there's purpose within purpose, etc. So this is what I see that purpose can do to help us untwist ourselves. It's another little story that I want to share, and I don't need the slide, or I'll keep the slide because people want to look at it. Many people don't know that I was in the army, because I was in Israel, where being in the army is mandatory. And I was once training a group of people, a group of younger women than me. So I was 19, they were 18. That's the craziness of armies, but I'm not going to get into that. And we were somewhere, and it was a weekend, and I invited a few of them to become leaders for the weekend, because we weren't really doing anything, and I thought that could be a great exercise in leadership. The next thing I see is the one who was chosen to be the main leader making a beeline to the bathroom to remove her makeup. Makeup is forbidden, at least was forbidden in the Israeli army at that time, but that didn't mean that the that the young women weren't wearing makeup. But the moment she was chosen, she went to the bathroom to remove it. And I asked her, why did you remove the makeup? And she said, now I am the leader and I need to be a model to others. So even though the purpose was put on her, it was enough for her to take herself seriously. Just having that little bit, an 18-year-old girl, young woman, started taking herself seriously. All right. Questions, comments?
To add something, Miki, again.
Yeah.
Just that you said purple is purple. Purpose. Oh, sometimes I write purpose instead of purple and the other way around as well.
Yes.
And I'm saying it as well. Sometimes yeah, so purpose is powerful because it has pull. And I wanted to connect it to the earlier slide about interdependence again, and that because purpose is like going out, it's like contributing to something. It's yeah, it has this taking ourselves seriously thing in it. It's like I matter. It's like I matter in the whole in some way because I'm bringing this out. And that I think it's powerful because of that as well, because it reconnects us with that interdependence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's it's like that's what the pull is. It's towards that part of the vision.
Yeah. Thank you. It may be, Folkmar, as I'm thinking about it, that your purpose is not tight enough to just say supporting people on their liberation, isn't actually tight enough to name what you are holding from vision in that purpose. That's a topic for another time. Jennifer?
Yes, thanks, Miki. Two concepts that I got from your writings or teachings that to me speak powerfully to what purpose can do to focus a group. And one is rigor. I think it really facilitates within the individual a more capacity for rigorous thinking, and between people and conversation, more exchange, more focus around, what's really counts and is to be said instead of like endless talking. And the other thing was the idea of purpose-based, correct me if I've got your phrase wrong, purpose-based trauma healing. In that in today's world, we can all just fall into the black hole of trauma. But if we're not already overwhelmed by trauma in our individual lives, it is an amazing approach to deal, to focus on purpose and deal with trauma in small bites as they come up towards that end.
Yeah. Yes, there's something absolutely wild about the idea that there will be pockets of trauma that will just stay there because it's not on purpose to heal them. I can keep doing my purpose without healing them, then I will. And if they block me, then I will go do something about them. Thank you. Nalini?
Yeah, this is what was just coming up for me. Just last week after NBC class I was in, I was having a realization that I've been so frustrated with relationship in my life up till now in this sort of patriarchal field that I've been so aware of from my childhood that I couldn't make things work, but I kept trying in that way, that I decided, okay, well, I just need to move forward with my life and put relationships on the side. And so then I had this sort of, male vision of, oh, I just move forward and do something. But somehow that wasn't connecting either. And then I got this realization that, wait, what I really, in NVC language, my need is for authentic connection. I have this deep need for authentic connection. Where does that fit? And then I started to realize that is my purpose, and I want to enrich life. And it really does come together, but it's only by being in a context like this where I can have authentic connection that it's possible. And so now I see how my values are integrated with that, because without that authentic connection, anything I do won't make sense.
Yeah. Yes, there is an integration that happens. As you move further along, things begin to integrate, and that's really satisfying when it happens. Natalie?
Yeah, I had a question around collectives or groups. So like if you have a group purpose, right? But then within that purpose, so let's say NGL, so integrating nonviolence in the fabric of life. So within that of the group, there's probably individuals, like individual purposes, and obviously they have to align with that. But then would the individual purposes within the group pull out of vision or be subcategories of your group purpose?
It's a fantastic question. I'm going to just give you like a very brief headline rather than getting into it. It depends on, for me, on how much shared risk there is within the group. Because if the shared risk within the group is small, then I can have my purpose over here and come into the group to participate in this purpose that is shared for us. And then at 4 p.m. I go from here and I go over here to have my individual purpose. If we're actually in shared risk, it becomes impossible to have a purpose that isn't within the larger purpose. Because then my pursuing a different purpose will have an impact on you. And if it has an impact on you, you will tell me, and then we will reintegrate and we will end up either finding a way to include my purpose within it, or I shift my purpose, or we shift our collective purpose, or I leave. But it creates a kind of intrinsic friction that we will need to address if we're trying to be in shared risk. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and it does. And I guess I'm wondering then what happens to all these folks with adjacent purposes? Do they not belong, or are they doing something else in the world?
I think in some ways, I would say that the distinction that we have between members and friends, even though it's now kind of like disintegrated and all kinds of things, and I don't want to get into it, but assuming that we have some distinction like this, the members would be the shared risk group that are cohering a field of shared purpose that they're all within. Friends would be people who are living their life and lending themselves to that purpose for when they are engaging. That's how I see it. And this is not unique to NGL. It's just within NGL. It's like, it's clear to me what it looks like. You know, like the most obvious alienated example is I go to my workplace, I do actions. If I have a regular job, I go to my workplace, I do actions that are related to the purpose of the workplace. I leave the workplace, I don't do those actions anymore. I'm pursuing my own action, my own purpose. Yeah?
I want to add something, Miki. I think just that if we look at what we're actually doing here with this, it's very, very specific and material systems change. Like we're talking about actually changing the system within which we live. Like that's very real, and that's huge, and also carries within it the very real potential, and many people around the world experience this in a very real way of state violence. So within that, the extent to which we're not actually together, like to which that what did I call it earlier, the yeast thing, is not actually formed and together, we are less resilient, we're much weaker, we're more likely, more easily going to be able to be dispersed again into our individual lives and forced to live that way, which is how we've got to where we are, through violence and force. So to the extent to which our individual purposes are not actually interwoven within shared risk, as Miki just called it, we are less resilient. But that's what shared risk is about. It's like, who's actually fully in for doing this systems change? And to the extent that we are, our purposes need to be aligned. We need to be aligned with where we're going, so that we actually have the collective power to live into what we're actually talking about. It's not a kind of abstract, oh, let's find our own life purpose type thing. This is actually talking about real system change, and where are we putting our energy towards making this thing happen. And on the other side of that is, well, yeah, you know, mass extinction, all of that we're talking about. This is a question of, can we actually turn this thing around, or attempt to turn this thing around, even by coming together in that way. We don't even know if that's possible, but we're trying to try.
I'm going to give another example. Do you want to say something before
Natalie had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, having that common purpose, but then if you're misaligned on vision, couldn't that also be an issue? Like if your vision isn't the same.
Totally.
So, okay, so there has to be an alignment on vision within that purpose alignment, because that's why we're working together. And then values can have a little more flexibility because it's more linking gaps in vision, because that's more of the untwisting yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into values, but
yeah. I want to give an example, I think a material example about the resilience that Emma is talking about. In the 17th century, when the massive land enclosure things were happening, 16th, 17th, 18th century, when I read about it, there were places where the villagers that were assaulted, for 50 years, they would keep going back and undoing the fencing to restore the commons. 50 years. The most amazing campaign that happened in the last few years, which is the, at least for me, one of the most amazing, is the DAPL, the Dakota Access Line, I can't remember the name of the place. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Yes, Standing Rock. That resilience and capacity, of course, the state violence is like 15 times more. They still had an amazing amount of resilience, but certainly not 50 years of coming back again and again and again and again. And the reason why that resilience is less there now is because we are less together in the clarity of our relationship to the material plane. It's not in relationship to some ideal or some abstract notion. It's on the material plane. We are in some togetherness that moves things towards caring for needs. That is almost non-existent in the global north. All right. On that note of intensity, let's go to the next slide. So we talked about
Miki, I just wanted to take a moment to actually, I find a lot of companionship and actually kind of ancestral companionship to draw on, to actually think of those people back then as we do those work. Those are ancestors of what we're doing, and there's strength and wisdom and really deep knowledge there to draw on, and they are our ancestors. They live within us in some way. So I'm gonna take a moment to just remember them, even if we don't know them, you know.
Yeah. This is not one of my strengths, to know when to take a pause and to know how to frame it. So thank you, Emma, for doing that. Right. So now we're going to talk about untwisting fields around us, where our purpose is something we can stand on to weave togetherness. It's never against. Even if we do nonviolent resistance, we're not against. Nonviolent resistance is a last resort effort to use the power of our resistance to bring togetherness, It is not to oppose. It is not to win. It is not to break. It is not to shame. It is to re-find our humanity. Even when others aren't aligned, how far can we go to rebuild togetherness, to realign with vision? Our purpose is going to give us strength to do that. So this is, I mentioned earlier that we do relationship in relation to purpose. One of the ways that we can lose track when we're trying to work with others to untwist fields is we can go down the rabbit hole of relationship, where we listen to everything that others have to say, we give them empathy and empathy and empathy, we make ourselves available for listening and for healing, and we forget that we have a purpose. So there is a very delicate act of conscious discernment about how much we go down the relationship, and it is to do it within purpose. When we are untwisting a field, we cannot expect to receive support within it, because the people who are within it aren't necessarily aligned, aren't necessarily wanting what we have to offer. We need to get nourishment elsewhere. And it's tough to try to do this, because others may respond with separation when we are trying to weave togetherness. That's been my experience a million times in my life, that I try to bring togetherness into a field and I'm responded to with separation. The strength of purpose is going to make us be able to absorb that impact and transform and transmute it into learning and going back with strength. And we don't stay there forever if it's not shifting. We need to be in a constant loop of discerning. Is it within capacity to stay here? Am I enough to stay here? Or is it time for me to shift purpose and exit the field and mourn that I or we don't have enough capacity to untwist the field? It's wrenching, especially if we care about the people or the field or the organization or the group or the community that we're trying to work with. It is wrenching to choose to leave. And if we don't have that option, then we're just going to drain our energy trying to untwist the field that is beyond our capacity to untwist. This is really heavy duty stuff that I am condensing into just one slide. And I'm happy to get more into it based on comments or questions. There are only 2 more slides after this. Those who've been here before know that these intros tend to be super dense on material. Questions or comments about this? Emma, I'm wondering if you have anything that you can offer in terms of illustrating it with untwisting work that you did. You know what I'm referencing. I don't want to say more because I don't want to expose it if you don't want to share.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I'll send you a private message.
Ah, okay. I thought you meant that actually. Sorry. Also seeing Natalie has a question, a hand up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe go there and I'll see if I can think of something while you
okay, great.
Talk there. Yeah. Okay.
Natalie. Unmute, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of you mentioning discerning the capacity we had, because that's really majorly important. And listening to you, I was going back in my head to situations where I did not have it. And I waited until the last moment and thinking that something was wrong with me, and just having my body say, I can't handle more. And I've come now to a space where it's the first thing I ask myself, and I continually do. So having you refer it as really a baseline feels really good, and I really appreciate the return to that. That's it. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if I could talk about it. It's to do with my family, stuff I did with my family. Maybe you showed the last slide. I can't actually remember what was on it, but maybe I can talk in reference to those things.
The slide that I was just showing, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So my yeah, I think they'd be fine for me to share about this here, because they were okay for me to share a blog post about it, which I don't know if I actually did or not, but anyway.
I think you did.
I can't remember if I showed it. Yeah. So my which to share. My sister was having a baby, and it's been one of my primary reasons for and there are two reasons for me taking up MVC. One of them is to do with like systemic and design stuff. I won't go into that piece. And another piece was to do with not wanting to continue the trauma patterns of my family. But how it lived in me originally was like, I don't want to be like my dad. Like if I was to have children anyway. And my sister ended up having a baby, and this also applied to that situation. So I really wanted to create a different family situation for this new person to grow up within than what I grew up within. Of course, it would be different because she has different parents, completely different setting at the same time. But and
so that's the purpose. That's the purpose.
Right.
The purpose is for this new being to have a different family constellation to live their life in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that when I go into settings like this, and particularly family setting, as you named earlier, that's the hardest place to untwist things, because we're so like set in our patterns together, and it's like people respond to you within those patterns even if you change. So I knew that I needed to set up support for myself outside of the situation. So this is within discerning capacity, discerning capacity within grounding outside the field for nourishment. So like here with my pod with Miki and Eddie, I think Fox was with us at that time as well. There's a lot of grounding in this way of being. So I know that I can lean on them. I can like send them updates and ask for appreciations or just things that they're seeing about what I'm doing to give me nourishment to continue the work I'm doing. And then I oriented, so with setting up all that, I then oriented to the relationships of people, my mom, dad, my sister at the time, within purpose. So if I know that I'm wanting to do this thing of whatever you said the purpose was, like creating a different family constellation for this new person, it's like I'm kind of like taking that on and wearing it. And it includes like glasses, so there's a particular lens, so I can see what are the conversations that I might need to have with different people to go in the direction of that purpose. And so I can see that I need to have a conversation with my mum and sister here to actually understand like how what it is that's challenging them in this situation. at the moment because I don't live there with them. So I'm wanting to really orient to what is true for them in that at this time. So I get information from there, and then I'm seeing that, oh, like through these purpose lenses, oh, I have this certain connection with my dad. So there's an opening there for me to have a conversation with him. So then I set up this setting of conversations, and also let me see. Yeah, leaning on, so then within, for example, conversation with my dad, leaning on the purpose to transform the impact of separation. I can know, because I know my dad cares about my mum, my sister, and this new baby that's coming. I know that he would also want this person to come into a family constellation that really supports their thriving. And I also knew that there was information in the field because of the separation between my dad and impacts that his behavior is having, and my mum's pattern, my sister's pattern of like not sharing that with him. This is like separation. There isn't actually information flowing in that field. I see that I can lean on my purpose and find a kind of joint purpose there with my dad, because he cares about the same thing, to actually bring in that information and start weaving togetherness by sharing information in ways that connect to the places that we all mutually care about. And within doing this, with the piece about discerning capacity within purpose to persist or shift, I can see moments when, like, for example, he doesn't understand what I'm maybe doesn't understand what I'm saying about the impact of certain actions that he's taken. So I can check in with myself in that moment if I have capacity within that purpose to actually give him more information, which may be about myself and my experiences with him, to persist in that, or do I not have capacity because if I was to share that bit of information and he didn't understand it, I would crumble because it's, I so want him to understand that or something. So I'm kind of doing these like constant little capacity assessments within that purpose to bring information or decide not to, but it's still within choice. And yeah, the end result of all of this is that there was a lot, how my sister framed it, or one of them framed it, was like we picked up the rug and like pulled out some of the stuff that was under there and brought it onto the top to actually talk about it together. And we actually had the capacity to have some conversations which they hadn't had before. And we've now made the choice, mainly me and my sister, to orient to the situation in a way that is true to the capacity, like seeing what was possible for my dad and my mum in terms of conversations, because we went as far as we could, and then making a decision based on the capacity, their capacity, because yeah, and that making a decision based on that, even though the outcome may be exactly the same, like we're not having these conversations or those conversations, the context from which that decision comes from is completely different, because it's based on information and the truth about it rather than from fear about not wanting to try and have those conversations. So going in with purpose and with this constant like capacity assessment has the potential to even like, yeah, shift our experience of a situation, even if it doesn't shift the situation entirely, and that's a world of difference. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Fitted it into the slide.
Amazing.
Is that helpful?
That was, I think this was hugely helpful, just to walk through an experience and see what these things mean. Amazing. And I'm even remembering moments in which you could see that you didn't have the capacity to go further. And there was mourning. There was lots of mourning in that, but there wasn't shame or fear or separation or distancing, because the purpose was clear and the capacity was clear. Yeah. Natalie.
I'm wondering if in a future slide, or if you could, or now we talk about what are the components of constructing a purpose statement.
Next slide.
Ah, all right, wonderful.
Cindy. Cindy, you're muted.
There. So I think a key piece that wasn't clear to me is that when we're looking at capacity, we also are trying to, although we can't know for sure their capacity, like if we're talking to someone that we're trying to move in togetherness with, but that's something that that's that piece of togetherness in determining the impact. Is that correct?
I think so. What I would say is, in some technical but important way, it isn't going to be the other person's capacity that will determine how far we go. It's my capacity to deal with their lack of capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's similar to something that I heard from Marshall Rosenberg many times. He said, we're not afraid of other people's reactions. We are afraid of our reactions to their reactions. I'll let you ponder that.
Yeah, that's different than how I interpreted what Emma just said as to why she chose not to go further, because she said that I thought that he wouldn't have the capacity to.
Yes, I know that's what she said. That's why I'm saying it's technical. She didn't say the piece that I said, but I know it was there.
I could say it, I think.
Yeah.
That like if we're trying to create shifts in a field, then I can't do the work for someone. It ultimately necessitates them to do something. So if say I made thought I had created a situation with my dad where he was going to go to my sister and share some acknowledgements, and I was going to help him to write them up and say them. If we agree that he's going to go to her house and visit her and do it, and then he doesn't for like a month, and when I ask him what happened, he gets defensive about it, and I don't have the energy to keep staying with him and empathizing with that and pointing things out of why this is repeating this and that pattern that he said he wanted to blah blah blah. If I don't have that energy, then that's the end of my capacity, and it's linked to his capacity. But yeah, does that help?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah.
Tanya?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Emma. I really enjoyed it, and I think I really kind of got more how it's all so, like how being in your purpose and staying within capacity is really necessary for nonviolence. Because how you talked about all the people, all I heard was care and acceptance. And like I noticed this in myself. As soon as I go over my capacity, I start to judge people.
Yeah.
It was like really, like just the experience of listening to you was so peaceful. So I really kind of connected the dots. Thank you.
Nice.
Great.
Thank you.
I just realized that we didn't do a break.
Yeah.
Let's do it now. Let's do 10 minutes. Even though it's closer to the end, let's do 10 minutes and come back.
Okay.
It's now 5 minutes after in most places, and there are places that are on the half hour relative to other places. So that would be 35 after. So we come in 10 minutes. So it's either 15 after or 45 after. Right. I'm ready to get started again. As many people as are willing, please turn on your cameras. I so much prefer to see people than to see static pictures. It feels more like we are together and we are weaving a field rather than me talking to abstract entities. All right, on to the next slide. So this isn't an introduction about how to work with purpose. So this is going to be more like how to orient to a purpose within the idea of wanting to do untwisting. And so one of the key questions is, if we are wanting the purpose to be within capacity, is that we want to be in choice about how we orient to relational and communication norms. It doesn't mean we always accept them. It doesn't mean we always challenge them. It's just a question of setting it up in such a way that our purpose will come from choice about how we want to do it. So for example, in the years in which I was believing, without having this language, I was believing that it was possible to create change or to do untwisting within existing for-profit organizations. I no longer believe that, but at some point I believed it. Then I consciously chose to adopt a certain way of speaking that isn't inauthentic, it's just very particular, that orients in a way to the norms of speech and communication and relating within the business world that support people in relaxing around relating to me so that I can bring in the content without challenging them on two levels at once. Conversely, Emma and Eddie were just in the hospital yesterday and the day before because Eddie had knee surgery. And one of the key things that we chose together that they would do is to ask the why about whatever the doctors and the nurses and whoever said, this is the next thing to do. Ask a why. That is challenging the norms of communication and relating, because medical institutions are expecting you to kind of like follow along. And if you ask why, you're disrupting something. And sometimes that is what is necessary to do. So the purpose isn't always one way or the other. It's something we need to think about when we choose a purpose if we want to engage in untwisting a field. Another one is to hold the systemic perspective within our thinking about the purpose, so that we're not in some kind of a tunnel vision about this particular situation, and we remember it within the context of the larger system within which we function and why we even want to do the untwisting. Hold that systemic perspective helps us figure out what the purpose is. And we want to orient to everyone's needs, even when they give up on them. So for example, one of the things that I always do when I call a bureaucratic institution or whatever, is I consciously choose to orient to the person in front of, not in front of me, to the person on the other side of the line as a human being. As a human being who has their needs, who wants to be cared about, who wants to whatever. and I orient to that, and I relate to them as a human being, even though mostly they're trained to not relate to themselves and to me as a human being. That's a micro untwisting. It doesn't change the whole thing, but it still is a micro untwisting. And I especially do that when I call anywhere to give feedback about dissatisfaction with the service. Because the service that I'm dissatisfied with, it's not the person that is in front of me. I still want, and I often acknowledge how shitty it is to be a customer support person who needs to hear all these people complaining about things. So it's all very different. But those are three elements. They may not be all the elements, but those are three elements that I think about when I try to have a purpose that is an untwisting purpose. Questions, comments, especially Natalie Al-Ziyud, because you asked the question and I want to know if that was helpful for what you were asking.
Let me see if other people have questions and then I'll come back.
Okay. Questions, comments, is this helpful? Is this relevant to whatever situations you're thinking about? Cindy.
Yeah, it was huge for me to just now, instead of thinking even of trying to change or shift, but to untwist, there's something that away from.
I'm sorry, Cindy. Cindy, I missed a word or two. Yeah, if you come closer, I think I'll hear you better.
There's something that for me that I just took in that takes away the them and us.
Yes.
By untwisting, it's like we're still there, both of us.
Yes.
And just untwisting or I don't even like the word raveling. I like untwisting because we both still remain very together and whole.
Yes.
The different or shape. Yeah.
I really love what you just said, that the untwisting frame is a way of undoing us and them, because when we look at it as a twisted field, we remember that it has humans like us who have been twisted like us. And in this case, we are doing untwisting from somewhere, but we ourselves still need untwisting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Natalie?
Yeah, I think maybe the best is for me maybe to bring in like my purpose and see what elements are missing. Would that be okay? Okay. So I have an organizational purpose, like a collective purpose, which is linked to building a new socioeconomic system. But then I have, which is why I was asking, like these sub-purposes, like within that, I have my purpose, which is weaving together adjacent possibilities. But I'm seeing that within that, it's not quite holding the systemic perspective, maybe.
Say more, how is it, where do you see it not holding?
Because I could weave together like an oil company and a like something, right? It doesn't have a visionary sense of what adjacent possibility, like it doesn't have the vision element of what possibilities I'm weaving together that are adjacent.
They may be adjacent without necessarily being adjacent in the direction of vision.
Yeah. And then I'm also seeing like, so I'm wondering, what would orienting towards the relational and communication norms be that? So like, is the weaving together, is that enough for it to mention the relational and communication norms?
I think that what I would put into the purpose is only what is necessary to like screw in and tighten and anchor the pieces that are important where you might slip.
Like part of my limitations?
Possibly. I don't know. I'm just thinking freshly.
Mm-hmm.
It can be like if there are particular elements that if they're not articulated, they can more easily fall into the patriarchal trance again.
That's what I
like
meant.
Maybe a condition of weaving, like there's a condition of the weaving that has to be liberatory.
Potentially.
Like
Maybe, yeah. Like it could be like if you're in the area, because you said, is it what you economic something, I can't remember what you said.
Well, so the collective is building a new socioeconomic system, right? So again, like that has to be further defined, but it's clear enough that, you know, like if you're joining, you're in there to build something new, right? So like that, I don't want to talk that because that requires a lot more definition, but mine is to weave together adjacent possibilities as what I'm seeing is to build this vision, to build this new socioeconomic system.
Okay, so an example could be adjacent possibilities in the direction of more gifting. Or it could, do you see what I mean? Then it gives it a vision orientation.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, so I got that I can add that, but how would it be more orient to relational communication?
Weaving togetherness, you could say humbly weaving togetherness with adjacent possibilities in the direction of this, of whatever. And then that reminds you, that word humbly weaving. I'm not advocating for it. It's just an example. I would need to know a lot more. But if you say humbly weaving together, it reminds you that it's all too easy to try to weave togetherness on your terms and impose them on others.
Got you. So it's an element, probably a value needs to, if humility is like pulling a value that has really a overarching purpose and direction. Yeah. And then
it could be a value, it could be a shape, it could be a particular focus. It doesn't have to be a value.
Yeah.
Just a something. It's amazing, you know, because we are purpose fiends around here. So we do purpose, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, purpose for this, purpose for that. And sometimes as we come up with a purpose statement, there's something missing, and one word can shift it into like, okay, that's it. So it's very delicate, the actual field of building a purpose.
Yeah. The humility bit, I think, was put in not because of the connection with values necessarily, but because if there's, say, the possibility that you could, or that you see yourself like falling into knowing what's right, for instance, with what you're doing, then the humility bit will pull you in the direction of the not knowing. It's like that piece needs to be anchored somehow within the purpose so that it has an accurate pull towards where you want to go.
Yeah. And then the lastly, orienting to others' needs, that could be the adjacent possibility. So if I see that as a gap or needs, like that already has that in there.
I'm not sure. Can you say it again? I was just looking to see if I was having the right slide on and I lost half a sentence. So please say it again.
So what I'm trying to do is fit the elements that you just mentioned into the purpose that I verbalized. And so I'm wondering if the last bullet point, which is around that the purpose orients towards others' needs, can be seen in weaving together adjacent possibilities, like that already has that in there, or is that not it?
Yes, it has that very implicit. And if you discern that the implicit is not enough for you, then you would need to think about what is the particular way in which you want to orient to their needs that they may not be holding, and put that word in.
And lastly, you mentioned a critical component of liberation, which is anchoring it in shared risk. So I'm surprised that an element of
the shared risk was an example.
Okay.
No, not at all. All groups would have a shared risk element to them.
But liberatory groups would, no?
Some liberatory groups, most liberatory groups that I know don't.
So the material connection is not necessary for purpose. Although it did
I like to put it there because that is where I want to go. But it doesn't mean that everybody would put it there.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I have a question that was a couple slides back that I'd like if you could say more about, because it concerns me and my situation within my spiritual community. And that was about, how do you work and relate with people who don't see any need for liberation and seem to be, apparently, at least, perfectly happy with the stability comes with the current setup? To me, that's really, I don't know how to work with that.
I think the question is, do you feel that you have capacity to hold the liberation lens with passion, to share with them the impacts of what their stability does to you and your sense of what it does to your existing mission or vision or whatever? If you don't have that, then you face the choice of, is it sufficient for me, what we have, to stay within the spiritual community as it is, without being able to untwist it towards liberation, or is it time to leave the community? And I'm not in any way implying that you should leave the community, not at all. I'm just saying it's a choice point. If you can't do the untwisting, if you don't have that capacity, is there enough there that you can discern a choice that is not resignation and not giving up, to stay there and accept how it is? If not, that's time to go. That's when it's time to go. When we don't have the capacity to change, and staying with it as it is no longer in integrity. That's why I left Israel. I could not see that I could make a dent in what I saw was happening. That is like 40 years ago that I left. And it's not like I was anticipating in detail what is happening now, but I saw where it was going. I couldn't have it be done in my name. And I didn't see a pathway for creating change. So I left.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it also makes me feel really sad.
Yes, of course.
You know, I think like, I don't know, in some ways, Jesus is my hero. And I think of how like turning he was to all the systems of his day. And
did you say Jesus? Did you say Jesus? Yeah.
Did.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard.
Yeah. And almost as soon as he passed, everything started to go the other way around again. And it's like, is this just absolutely hopeless? Yeah, I don't know. I get so discouraged.
I can only tell you this. I think like at least a good third of the time, I think of whatever it is that I have been able to salvage in the direction of liberation. How do we anchor it sufficiently so that it stays after I die? That's a good third of the time. It's like I'm obsessing with that. And Jesus would be one example.
Yeah, there's more.
Millions more.
Yeah.
An example of what?
An example of where there is an amazing vision that doesn't outlive the person through whom it came. Yeah.
Thank you.
And as a Jew, it's doubly painful because we lost him. Through what happened after he died, we lost him. And something else happened that almost lost us. It's a very complex situation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your sadness. All right. Last slide. very last one is, and this is one of those times where Sabrina, who did the visuals, actually added to the content in the way that she did the visual, because you can see how things are nested. That we choose a purpose that is our overall purpose, but that's not enough for everything that we do. So like, for example, here we have an overall purpose for us. Then we are here in Turkey for a few months. We created a purpose for our time here. We didn't actually create a purpose for you going to the hospital because we didn't think it was a big enough thing to create a purpose for, and that was hard.
But we realized that we actually have an implicit purpose, which we kind of named when we were there, which was, I don't remember what exactly it was. It's in relation to metabolizing everything that happens into learning, like around that general purpose for instrumental engagement.
We are now about to go into a gathering with a bunch of people around us. We're creating a purpose for us within the gathering. We are going on a 3-month transition afterwards. Every bit of the transition will have a purpose. And when we are going for parts of the transition to not be together, we will have a purpose for each of us and a purpose for all of us together in holding. This is an endless thing, because without it, any place where we don't have a clear, strong purpose, we're more likely to fall into the groove. And, you know, if you are obsessive enough, you create a purpose for the day. I now have daily purposes. And I'm using them less now because I am a little bit more in flow, so I'm less in need of them. But I was going through a really difficult time, and every morning I came up with a purpose for the day. So, and then there are 2 questions that are constantly supporting us in aligning, which is what we are doing within purpose and capacity? And if not, is it time to shift what we're doing or shift the purpose? That's the question. That's what living from purpose means, is all these circles that relate to each other and constantly holding it. That's where the rigor is. A bigger piece of the rigor that Jennifer mentioned earlier is in this. So I'm going to keep this open because I imagine that people might have a desire to reference the image when asking questions. And if not, I'll go back to.
I'm going to say, Miki, I think it's also interesting that this is these are all circles, because in a way I see like purpose as a way of specifying what it is that we want to care for within the bounds of anything that we do. And within that, like it cares for specific needs, it prioritizes specific needs. So it creates like a container of choice within which we can enter into the patriarchal world, which is constantly trying to nix that like choice and togetherness and all of those things. Yes, we can enter into it, and because we've already articulated it, because we've already articulated what it is, it's like we don't need to keep trying to do that work, because keeping on trying to make meaning out of something or to understand what the needs are, or what, you know, why am I here, that takes a lot of energy when we're constantly bombarded by something that is against. So it's like a within capacity way to enter into patriarchal stuff and stay connected to choice. So it's really caring for our capacity and for the needs. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. All right, any question from anyone on this? All right, I'm going gonna go back, and if anybody wants to see the slide again, we can. Questions or comments? Natalie, can you create groups of 3? I would like to give people 10 minutes at least to talk with each other. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, great. So why don't you make it 10 minutes, and then it will be 1 more minute to come back. So that will be 11 minutes, and then we'll come back for closing.
I don't know how to do that, but I'll track the time. And for folks, if you are by yourself, I will switch you around. So just wait a minute. And because of the numbers, some of you are in pairs.
You don't know how to create that clock that ticks the time?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, then we won't have it. All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm wondering if anyone has any last minute question or comment you would like to make before we move to closing. Marilise.
Yeah, I have a question about this untwisting and relationship with capacity. And I wonder if at some point I have a sense that my capacity to untwist whatever is around me is just in this moment not sufficient. And the context is my family at this moment. And I have a 5-minute phone call and I keep just going back to working on myself because that's all I can do because what's going on is so overwhelming. And do you have any, and I guess the purpose could also be then focusing on that, like whatever I can do within myself if I still choose to engage with the field.
Yes, and you know, if you choose to engage with a field that is beyond your capacity, by definition, the only thing you can work on is your capacity.
Yeah.
Because that's where you have agency.
Yes.
And I just want you to keep asking yourself if you want to keep making that choice. It's not like there's a right way. It's just, is it within my larger purpose to put so much energy into this one place?
I've been putting very little, so little that it's heart-wrenching for me, but I still want to put some.
So long as there's discernment, I'm happy.
I think one thing could be to think of like, is there anything that you could put into that field that is in relation to your strengths? So it's not so much effort for you. Like, is it easy for you to give appreciations or to, I don't know, whatever it could be, just something that hasn't got effort that could feed that field, nourish it in the direction of what you want.
I like that question. I will ask that of myself.
Yeah.
And I also wonder, I don't know how to discern if this is so.
Marilise, I want to pause here because there's one more question and we're moving to closing, and I'm very confident that there are other contexts where you can ask the question.
Okay.
Nalini?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little clarity on starting points for creating a purpose. I'm getting a lot of the context that we're talking about. I'm wondering if like just starting with my needs, like starting with what is my need going into something is a starting point.
Yes.
Just wanted some, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we are getting to closing, and there are two things I want to say as we're getting to closing. One is,
you want to take Falkmar's question, Miki?
I think it might be too late. I want to say the things and then see. One thing is that I want to invite people to consider engaging with us more fully, to participate in the experimentation in what we are learning, not just come to learn when we share it, but be part of creating it. The door is open. Anybody can join NGL as a friend. And we now are beginning to have more pathways that are organized and less overwhelming, like an orientation period, a period of supporting and things of that nature. So I invite you to go to the NGL website and see if it's for you. Second thing is I want to invite people again to consider what is within capacity and willingness for you to give to us in terms of sustaining financially the work that we do. Most people who come to these events don't give anything, which is completely fine. And the totality of what comes is less generally every month than what I had been hoping these events would give rise to. That's no reason for me not to do them. And I still want to ask people to see, even if you gave already, is it possible for you to give more? Can you think of someone else who might not have been here, who might be excited about what we're doing and want to support it even without coming here? Please consider it. Never want 1 cent to come to us that isn't coming from wholehearted clarity that this is what you want to do and it's fully within capacity, then I still ask the question. And for the rest of the time, I want to hear from people. What are you taking with you from having been here? What's something that stands out to you that you will keep thinking about, that you might try to apply, that will help you with your experimentation? Folkmar, do you want to say something like that, or are you still with the question? Okay, go ahead, Folkmar.
Yeah, it is actually with a question, and it is the reminder for me how I tend to fall back in this. I have to do it on my own in this belief, and how important it is for me, since, and for many, I guess, since we are trained in individualism to seek togetherness also in that. That's the one. And the other thing is about purpose, that how I haven't looked into purpose for a while, into my purpose. That's a good reminder as well.
Great, thank you. Tanya?
Yeah, I realized something very important for me today. And I think I came into this call with the purpose of understanding something about myself, and it worked. That, yeah, like when I take care of my capacity, it's hard for me because I think I do it for myself, and like how that is such a thought that's based in separation, and that really, like, me taking care of my capacity is taking care for the whole.
Mm-hmm.
That's like very relieving to me.
I think the more in a leadership position you are, the more significant it is to accurately assess your capacity, because otherwise you seed a field that doesn't care about capacity.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Terry?
Unmuted. Okay. Well, I'm so happy to see you and Emma. And and I just
Terry was with us for a month. That's why this is like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I really miss you both. Anyway, when Emma shared the story about her family and sharing with her father and speaking what, you know, what was in her purpose, to be aligned with her purpose. Anyway, something that I've been dealing with is information, and how I noticed that I don't always share information. And Emma talked about that as not sharing information as separation. And it just all came together for me. And I realized that that's a patriarchal groove that I need to do. And I'm really celebrating that. And thank you for sharing that.
Wow. Cool, very cool. Matua, and then we'll close.
Just the piece around strength and how this journey of liberation has separated me from my family because of the journey that I've taken, and how the strength of love of me doing these little things is bringing my family back together. That's just amazing how and then if I take that little thing that I've done, tea or lunch on a Sunday afternoon, every Sunday I make lunch regardless of if anyone turns up or not, that is slowly starting to bring the family back together. And then that's that seed of growing the tree that I.
Nice. Wow.
Emma, you want to say anything yourself in closing?
I just really love being here and doing this together and with you all. It's been really, really energizing, actually, and also just like needing to articulate these things. It always pushes thinking forwards to need to articulate things. And I've also, yeah, it's like solidified more some other thoughts I was having in relation to purpose. And, yeah, so I'm really grateful to have done this. Yeah.
And I want to just close with how delicious it is to speak with a group of people who are really taking things in, applying them instantly within themselves and asking questions from there. It was a very coherent and deep field here today, and it was very, very pleasurable to be here. Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Many thanks. Bye.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Gratitude to all. Thank you.